Welcome to the Elite Health Podcast, where we teach you how to improve your health, body, mind, so you can feel the best version of yourself. And we are joined by very interesting guests with very interesting stories to teach you how they overcame their struggles and how they actually became the best versions of themselves. So today we're joined by Annie Price. Annie, do you want to give us a little introduction as to who you are, how we met, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, gladly. Thank you very much for having me, number one. I'm Annie. I'm the creator of Wellbeing Club, which is a club, much like you, want to try and help people with on-the-ground fitness, tangible ways to actually feel good. And I'm a TV presenter.
Awesome. So how do we actually know each other? We've talked for a bit, but how did we come to meet?
So it was through the masterminds. So guys, I hope you're listening, always learning. So it comes from the mastermind, and yeah, we just chatted from that, haven't we?
Yeah, so we're in the fitness space as well, and we are both really trying to help people, and that's one of the big goals that we want to really push out there as well. So for you have like a very interesting story and an interesting background as well. So do you want to give us a little background as to your early life and what that was like for you and how you actually came up and grew up as well?
For sure. I mean, how long have you got? But no, I'm kidding. I'll keep it short for you. So I was born into a traveller family. My birth mother was white, so was her husband. And then at 4 weeks old, I came out black, which put her in a very difficult situation, obviously. And then at 4 weeks old, I was in a fire and I was saved by an unknown, not really sure who. And from then on, the story I was told was my mum tried to kill herself, which is obviously not nice for anyone to grow up thinking. I was in hospital thereafter for about 7 to 8 months because I suffered third-degree burns to where you can see my face, both my hands, my arm, the top of my head. I always wear a wig. I was lucky. I was fostered from about 9-10 months, and then I was adopted by the same family 6 years later. It was a bit of an interesting checkered history, but ultimately I was a lot of love there from the nurses, the doctors, my foster parents. I was quite lucky in the end.
In terms of your actual early life itself, what kind of struggles may you have faced coming up as well? And of course, I know I can only imagine that it was difficult growing up as well. So were there any difficulties that you felt you had in terms of feeling different compared to anyone else when you were growing up?
Yeah, certainly, for sure. I think that, I'm not crazy. I knew that I was very different from a young age. But I also reasoned that we were all different. Now, obviously, I didn't say it like this. But as a kid, we're all very different. You got red hair, dark hair, white skin, dark skin, big, tall, skinny, big. Everyone's so different. I kind of just felt like we're all different. My different was just, she's blonde and short, and I'm dark-haired and short and burnt. So it didn't hit home how sort of possibly unique is a nice way to put it I was compared to other people until much later, until I got to about 15, 16, really. Obviously, there were some difficulties. I'm not going to pretend there wasn't. I think none of us passed through school without any arguments or minor bullying, if you like. But I was always I was the youngest of 3 kids, So you learn how to throw a punch, and I did. And quite frequently when I was younger. But I was lucky because the support network and the teachers and the people around me, I never really got berated for what I did. Like if there was a trouble and I solved it in a more animalistic way than words, yes, I was pulled aside and I had to go and sit apart from people and whatnot. But it was always behind closed doors, like, we understand why you did that, and fair enough, because that's a fair reaction. However, Annie, you cannot do that. So they were very logical and emotionally trying to help me through those situations. Like, yes, you're right. And yes, sometimes people do fully deserve a smack in the mouth, no matter how PC you want to be. But absolutely not. You cannot do that because you will be the one that gets the consequences of that. So they helped me be really self-aware from a young age about how to react and not to react. And also separate how I felt and my thoughts with, the permanence of it. How I was thinking at the time doesn't mean I'm always going to be like that. And to understand that, yes, I can be frustrated and upset in one area, but there could be another area which things are going really well. And that's super important, I think, because when you're going through a struggle or things very difficult, you can fall into that black hole where you think that's all there is. And certainly now on social media, everyone talks about trauma and, working through these things. And what people forget that you don't have to live there. Absolutely, you can go through some hellish times, but also absolutely, you can have a wonderful time in another area. There's a lot of difficulties for me growing up, but did I have a really great family life? Was I doing really well with sport at school and outside of school? Yes. So you can have two emotions going along at the same time. So this is all to say that, yes, there was a lot of challenges. I'm not going to, and even looking back, especially now I've got kids, because I've never sort of leaned in and looked at myself enough to feel sorry for myself. But now I've got kids and I can see, I can appreciate there's some really difficult things that I went through as a kid. I was supported enough. I had someone I could speak to. They didn't give me good answers and they weren't particularly helpful. But actually having a sounding board, I've realised over time is enough. It's enough, and that can really help.
I can imagine that you've really built the resilience throughout your younger life, and I think trauma is one of the biggest trauma. I truly believe trauma is one of the biggest things in life that you can really pull yourself all the way down into the ground with or grow from. And for you, how did you really get to a point where you told yourself that you are going to grow from your current situation?
So there's always a question in a question, because that is a great question, but it's also worth saying that life's not like the movies. For instance, more often than not, the worst part of feeling bad or going through trauma or feeling terrible is that actually you don't realise how bad it is because you're so far gone. And so you can't actually see, oh my gosh, I'm actually in a bad place, I need help. So more often than not, when you're in a difficult situation, you're just ploughing on. You go in that survival mode of just going, I'm going to move forward, I'm going to move forward, I'm going to move forward. And it isn't until the dust settles that you can go, hold on, actually, I need to do some work on this. So it's a double-edged sword. Trauma's two things. You can either get through it inside out, therapy, talking, journaling, speaking to parents if you're lucky enough to have that, or you can do it outside in. Focus on work, focus on your body, training. There's two different ways. At some point or another, I think that you're going to need to understand that you need to do both, especially from the inside out. However, sometimes you can't do that. So I think when people say to me, how did I get through difficult times? I was quite fortunate. I had a lot of difficult times, and I used a mixture of both. So I never got that wonderful epiphany of going, you know what, that's enough, I'm going to move forward. And I think that I wouldn't say it annoys me, but I certainly don't think it's true, and I don't like the narrative of it, is that people, especially all the successful people that you hear, they talk about their story. They talk about how well they've done, how they've rised up from all these different things. But in reality, they did that in spite of who they are, not because of it. A lot of what they've done is luck. Things will happen in the right place. I'm not taking away their hard work. I'm not taking away their effort. But people will forget that luck isn't just being in the right time, at the right place, right time. It's you're born in England. You're born in a certain country. You're not born in the 60s. You have an older brother and sister, so you're used to the wildness of being in, a community situation. There's so many variables that these things happen. So people always think, oh, they've done this, I'm going to follow their path to success. When in reality, it's lots of things. It's the small steps. I know for a fact you'll when I get there, you'll see what I mean. And that this is why I love fitness, is that everything's a game of inches. You take one step forward, you take another step forward. You're not going to wake up with a six-pack. You're not going to wake up and be able to double your bench press. You're not going to suddenly be okay with running 10 miles. They're gifted to you when you pay the price. And that's the same with all this trauma. There's never a moment. You're never going to get something and suddenly everything is going to change. You're going to do different things step by step and it will come. You'll be able to change because you've taken little steps to improve the situation you're in. But for me, going back to a specific situation, I remember I was about 15 or 16. I had difficulties before then, but they're like just part of life, let's just say. And to paint the picture of how I was, let's say people would stare at me a lot. I looked a bit more harsher back then because I didn't wear makeup. I didn't wear a wig. So I did look very severe. Like, it was a bit more shocking. But people would always comment, shout, follow me. I've been attacked 3 times. If I went into a coffee shop, the waitress wouldn't always address me. They would speak to who I'm with. I'm like, would she like, you know what I mean? And it seems like small things. But obviously that constant like chipping away really drops your confidence. It makes you feel not even stupid or something. It makes you more feel like a leper of the world, like you don't fit and you don't belong anywhere. So that was kind of where I was at this point. Anyway, so now I'm 15, 16. Like all my friends, you want to earn a bit of cash at the weekend, get a job in a shop. I did as well. And my friends had jobs in clothes shops like H&M or whatever. I wanted the same thing. Did my CV, walked around, sent it out, gave it out. But I didn't hear anything back. Unless I emailed it, then I'd get a call in. And as I walked into the shop, I'd see the shopkeeper's face like fall, like get really uncomfortable. I would get that uncomfortable, and there was just this really awkward exchange of, suffice to say I didn't get a job, and that for me was like the worst part because I just thought, oh my goodness, if I can't get hired, if I can't get a job in what was a shop that I didn't even really want to work, what else can I do? And that's the problem with thoughts, as I was telling you earlier, like there's no neutral thoughts. Wherever you start and look at, you're going to go, So for me, I started to question everything. Like if I can't get a job in a shop, can I have a relationship? Will I meet a guy that I want to be with? Will I be able to have more friendships? If I can't work, can I buy a house? Or am I going to be dependent on my parents forever? You know what I mean? Like it was just this constant cycle of, this spiraling. And for me, like there wasn't an epiphany out of that. I was just really low for a while. And that's not who I am. I'm very sociable. Like, you know me, I'm very sociable. I love people. I love chatting. I like being out and about. And it just felt super low. And as I say, the worst part about that was I didn't really know how to tangibly say it because I knew no one could help. No one's going to throw a wand over that situation and make it better. And it takes time. But what I did to get out of that, which is helpful and it's something I recommend, and it's a stage that I would say most people either bypass or maybe don't even see it as a stage, is that before you can go near unpicking parts of a situation and your behaviour and your own mindset, you just need to change where you are because you can't make good decisions off of that. And luckily for me, my attention span is short as hell. So I just got bored of being sad, to be put it frank. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to enjoy what I was doing. And that's what I did. I just hung out with my pals again, started doing more sport again. I was doing trampoline and competing at trampoline competitively at the time. So I was just leaning back into the things that I loved. I loved writing. I was just writing stories and whatnot. So I had lots of avenues that I could sort of enjoy. And then when you're in that space, then when you try to make decisions, you're going to be coming from a lot better position than if you'd made decisions when you're feeling your worst. So that's something I'd always recommend. Anyone's going through a difficult time, don't try and hop to solution phase, because you're probably in a bad state. And this goes for everything. It doesn't mean you have to live there months in that, and you can take it to extremes. I'm not talking about staying at the party too long. I'm just saying lift your mood, watch a fun movie, hang out with people you love. And then I was able to say, okay, Annie, enough's enough. Like, this sucks and these things keep happening. And I was young, right? So I was a teenager. So what teenagers want to say? Life's unfair, So it doesn't matter what I would have been going through. A teenager is going to want to say things like that. And that's how I felt. Like, this is so unfair, this situation. Why is this happening? It's so annoying. Why do I have to put up with this? And I felt kind of trapped And that's a horrible feeling for anyone, I think. But again, that's probably one of the best lessons I've ever learned. And I wouldn't even say I'm proud of it. I would think it's quite a sad thing, but I'm probably one of the happiest people I know. And I think it's because of this, what I'm about to say now. So listen, because this is the bit that it helps. In life, no matter what happens and how unfair it is or whose fault it is, win, lose or draw, it is your responsibility. It's our responsibility to deal with it. It's absolutely not my fault that my mum couldn't handle this situation and I was burnt. It's not my fault that people are going to react and I'm probably going to get the short end of the stick there. But if I took responsibility of that situation, could I make it better? For sure I can. What could I have done in that shop situation? I could have put my chest up, put my chin up a bit higher, put on a nice little outfit, walked in there and said, hey, listen, I know it's probably a bit difficult, but honestly, I'm super confident. I love your clothes, whatever the hell they are. I would love to work here. Can I have even just a week? I'll do a free half week for you. You'll see customers will really get on with me. We'll sell the shit out of all your stuff. I could have done any number of things in that situation. But obviously, I was young. I was nervous. I wanted them to say, come in, you can do this. And sometimes you're just not going to have that. We're not all going to have that that opportunity where people are always going to open the door wide for you. And as I say, like me having to crawl into most situations I have, fighting my ass into it, has given me a perspective and happiness that I'm not sure many have, or certainly they don't get until much further down the line. And again, I don't say this to be, bragging. It's so far from it. It's more that I don't know how else I can say to others, but lean into the difficult times. Like, they're going to be challenges. And if you don't make a purposeful effort to pick up challenges that are your own, when something comes, and it will, because that is life, it will knock you for six and you'll say, why me? Why can't I do this? Life's hard. I'm sad. I'm scared. And you'll turn into a crumbling mess and it will hurt. Now, I'm not going to say for a second that you're ever going to be shielded from that. However, I will say you'll absolutely feel so much more better about it if you know that you can say to yourself, oh, you know what? I've been through this before. I know you. I know these feelings. I know this. And you can then say, okay, I can wrestle with the self-doubt here. I can move through this. Yeah, these are my thoughts, but I'm the bit that can react to those thoughts. I don't have to listen to that. I can say, hey, come on, honey, let's calm down here. Things are difficult. Let's lean into that self-care. Let's go back to the drawing board. And that's when you actually learn that you can sort of take care of yourself. And that's really what self-care is. Unfortunately, it's not crystals and jewelry, hot baths, and too much wine. It's pausing when things are difficult. And so I think that the only way you can get that is by going through the difficult times.
Honestly, that is super, super inspiring. I have the utmost respect for people who do take absolute responsibility and ownership for the outcome of their lives, despite their situations. And it is very, very respectable. And I know it for you as well. Like, I'm sure it's applied to all aspects of your life. So what helped you really make that mental shift to take responsibility for everything that has come up in terms of hardships, struggles? What really helped you make that leap into becoming the better version of yourself in terms of how you view the world and how your perspective of other people, your situations changed?
It feels better to take responsibility, is the short answer. It's scary at first because you don't want to. And remember as well, I'm not a saint. I do it when I have to. I make myself laugh because I feel like I'm a lazy squatter. You all know, we all train someone or we train ourselves. And what I mean by that is when you squat heavy with a barbell on a squat rack. So when you're doing a warm up, you put a little bit of weight. You're not going to go straight up to your personal best. You're going to do a little bit of weight. Now, until I get up to my big heavy weight, I don't fire. My glutes aren't really going, my knees aren't out, I haven't got the fire in my belly, I'm not ready to rock and roll. But when that weight is on my back and the choice is stand up or you're on your ass, that's when I go in. So again, we've all got our chips that we need to focus on and learn and grow on. So so I'm definitely have to put myself in hot water to get moving sometimes. But no, ultimately it's because it feels better taking responsibility for what you do. It's horrible to feel unsure and, I hate saying it, but it's true, scared. It's scary. It's scary when things are really challenging and life's hard and you don't know how it's going to go and there's so much that's outside of your control. It's just really scary, and you just want to run off and have someone hold you and make it okay. And I think, where I've gone through that, and there's points in my life where I could run to someone and say, give me a hug. My adoptive mum, who I would never call my adoptive mum, but just to explain here, there's times where she would hug me and say nothing, I don't know, Annie, I don't know how, I don't know. And that's horrible, because then you think, okay, you don't know, I don't know. There's a whole vacuum of I don't know. That's the only thing that's left is fear, and that's where anxiety comes in. And I think that with anxiety, for instance, it can, if left unattended, and that's what people do, they like to say they've got it, but then they don't want to turn around and look into it. When you actually look at it, I think it's more about not being able to trust yourself. That's where that all comes from. You don't trust how you'll react. You don't trust how you'll feel. You don't trust yourself to be strong enough in a certain situation. And I do mean that metaphorically, not in any other way. And so then for me, the only way I can sort of learn to make sense of it is saying, right, how can I trust myself? How can I feel more confident in myself? So that's a big question. How do you get more confident? There's only one way to get more confident. And despite the affirmations and the, visualization of things, which absolutely helps. And I do believe in affirmations on the level, and I do absolutely visualize myself. I think that's an excellent tool, but you have to actually do the thing. You're only going to get confident by achieving what you said. That's what confidence is. There's no other way. I think that's where things are going a little bit wrong now. People are trying to talk themselves into being confident. You can tell it to whoever you want. You can say it out loud as much as you want, but your head hits the pillow. It's only you and yourself. We know. And remember, when I talk about confidence, I didn't say smashing it. I did not say that. I said confidence. Confidence is saying, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to succeed. I don't know how things are going to land, but I'm okay with trying. That's what confidence is. And that's one of the biggest and the best things you can do. And one of the main things I see as my role to give my children, because ultimately I'm not going to be around forever, and I just want them to be okay with themselves enough to do the things they want. That's about it.
How did you find yourself to ask yourself these questions, the right questions that helped you level up in every area of your life? What really made you ask yourself these questions as to what the next step actually was?
I was literally just about to say, I forgot to turn my phone off. Fine. I was just going to let you finish that because that was a really nice question.
Nice.
And then I was going to do it, but I'll do it now. But you're going to have to re-ask that question because it was a really good question.
So, yeah.
I'm so sorry. It's always on silent, so I forget that it's even there. How did you know to ask yourself the right questions or something in that way?
Something like that, yeah. So how did you find yourself to be able to ask the right questions to help you level up in every area of your life and know what to ask yourself as well?
You don't. I'm articulate now, because of hindsight. I'm not articulate now because I've been through challenges. And this is an issue as well. Like, a lot of people have been through challenges. In fact, everyone's been through challenges. And so people think that alone means something. You know, that's the difference between, you know, age and wisdom. You don't get wisdom just because you got age. You know, it's how you go through a challenge, how you react to the challenge, how you reflect on it. And you need to reflect on it. You only get to reflect on it when you've been through it. You know, and I'm only going to reflect on it because it's gone wrong. You know, I'm not sitting here because I've done it right. I'm sitting here because I've done it wrong. And I've made so many mistakes. And I was so emotional as a child and as a teenager. And I would say even up until I was about 25. And that's me being kind. And what I mean by emotional is then I was like hot-headed. You know? I was just the girlfriend. Oh, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I was the sort of girlfriend that you annoy me, your clothes are going out the window. You know what I mean? I was one of them. People always talk about like the crazy girl, and I'm like, and I'm only saying that as an example because it's obviously I think it's not so about them, or it could have been anything, and it was in all areas of my life. Like, it was too enthusiastic. You know, stayed at the party too long. You know, I was all in, high octane, and yes, that I think looking back served me well in my relationships. You know, and I'm not talking about like love male relationships. I'm talking about my friendships, which is for me the most important thing. Relationships. However, it's been detrimental in most all other areas of my life as well, and allowed me the opportunity to make a wonderful spectrum of mistakes. So I was given the opportunity, like while I was talking about this, I was given the opportunity to learn because I had to. There's only so long you can keep making the same mistakes. And I still do it now. Like, there's areas of my life that I fly, and I believe I fly. I'm proud of myself. That's another thing I want people to do more is lean into when you do things well, because that's also an important part of it. It's just as bad to deny the good as it is to lean in and wallow in the bad. Like, you actually have to say, like, I'm doing well here. I'm doing good in that area. I've done this good thing. Like, certainly for me, like, creating a calm and consistent mental headspace is one of the biggest keys to success in all areas. And I don't just mean, absolutely, I'm talking about business, although absolutely that is it. I'm talking about relationships, all these different things. And that's something that I've had to work on. So for me, bringing my emotions down, I was just forced into it. And as I say, I've had so many opportunities to get it wrong, whereas I think most people don't. You know, I think most people really only go through difficult times because they might have, you know, sadly a family member die, or they don't get hired the job they want, or they get fired, or they go through a difficult breakup, or might have a shady relationship where someone does some sort of domestic violence, either way, back or forth, which are all horrible things. But as much as a lot of people won't want to admit, it's privilege of living. They're normal problems. I wonder if I'm damaged goods by saying that's a normal problem. I don't know. But yeah, like they're pretty average. I would think that's part of life. And then, you know, you don't get the opportunity to lean into it. Whereas for me, there were so many things, you know, that you know, I couldn't live like that. It hurts. You know, it's always going to be pain. Like, it hurt to feel like if I could imagine it, it would be like the London Underground. Like, my head and my emotions were just like crazy, and I couldn't breathe. I couldn't relax. I was like, how, you know, I can't keep doing the same thing. It was never an intentional, you know, any wisdom or kindness you're giving me there, Azri, it's not deserved. Like, I didn't intentionally say, Hanny, look, come on, you've made this mistake the third time now, you shouldn't do it again. I was like, Annie, you've made this mistake 55 times. Sort your life out. Like, come on, things must change. And also, I know I know the trajectory of my life and where I want to go. And I'm very simple in that way of going, okay, if I do that, I'm not gonna get that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I completely understand. So I was always super reactive to everything around me in terms of situations.
Really? I can't imagine that.
I used to be. So I basically grew up very, very quickly in a very, very short period of time.
When?
So I was quite young when I realized that everything that didn't serve me in terms of my emotions didn't need to be there, and anything I couldn't change didn't deserve my thoughts at that point. So
That's good.
for me, like the main thing that did help actually tone me down, actually helped me gain control, was routine, structure, and fitness. Gym.
Same.
Gym is basically where I let all my emotions run in a controlled environment. Same. Basically. So how, I know you went all into that, so how did that actually apply to your life, would you say?
Same as you. That was my cornerstone. I didn't realise it then, but I'd always done sport. I did gymnastics, trampolining. I did all of those for like 15 years. Did judo. It was always, I didn't realise at the time, but that was my outlet. And I needed things that I could go, absolutely to town with. And then I became a personal trainer sort of just for the joy of it. It wasn't ever supposed to be the forever job. But yeah, I love it. I love it. And it was one of those, I was working myself. I was able to, sorry, I'm just thinking, that's not how I got into it. I originally started, I wanted to be a journalist, and I had to get office experience until I could work for a paper. That was my dream, Lois Lane. And then I got a job in a gym because my sister's pal was a manager, and she said, I'll work as a personal trainer. It's good cash, good money. Bearing in mind it's good money when you're 20, right? And then you can do some writing on the side. But as we all know, there's no on the side when you're doing a job because it's all in. But actually, I loved it. I love it. We get the best of the nation, really. They get to, it's their treat normally to come and see a personal trainer. So you get to make them either balance their lifestyle, fit into a pair of jeans, make some changes, feel good for that portion of their day. I loved it. In fact, that was one of the best things for me at that time because I was mid-20s. Life was wild. I was still very cray. And being able to help people took the pressure off my own issues. I think so many times whenever I speak to people that are in a particularly bad spot, it's because they've created that in that there's no other outlet, They don't have anything else to focus on. So I had to focus on earning a living. I moved out at 19, so I had to keep a roof over my head. I had to make this job work because I went straight for working for myself. And I had to help people and help them get their results and help them feel great. And that was a privilege to do that and be able to focus on them. And that gave me so much perspective and going, wow, I'm actually not that important at all, in the scheme of things. We've all got difficulties going on right now, So yeah, that was a big one. But no, fitness and gym and training has always been, as you say, so good. And I think that's the one thing, it's a bit of a shame. Most people only focus on the end result and the long-term gains from training, but the immediacy of feeling amazing is wonderful. You can go in and do, even 20 minutes in reality, do a big session, 60, whatever, however long you're going to do, and you can feel great. And a lot can change. And I'm sure everyone can understand, imagine when you're in the shower, you've got a problem, then you go have a shower, or you're cleaning, or you're driving, and where your brain is focused on something practical, suddenly it's a little bit more creative and you start thinking outside the box and you can see around your problem, you can depersonalize it. And that's kind of what happened in the gym. I wouldn't walk in there knowing my problems are going to be solved, but I'd walk in there, train hard, feel great, and then be like, hold on, I feel a little bit better about the situation. And then things would come, so for me, it was just so linked to feeling, having a good life. I just took it for granted. Fitness for me has always been almost like cleaning your teeth. Whereas I think a lot of people, when they start fitness, it's I love it. I want to be the best shape of my life. I want to feel, look, do it. Whereas for me, it was never really like that. I only did competitive bikini shows and things much later. And that was even after I'd trained women to get on stage. I only did it because I was in a gym where everyone was doing it. And I thought, actually, I might as well do 1 or 2 shows myself because I'm doing it. I'm going through it with all my clients. And I knew it wouldn't be that outside of my life anyway. But yeah, no, so for me, it's, I feel very lucky that I fell into fitness.
Do you find that now this is where your main purpose lies, in helping other people and serving other people with with their fitness goals? And do you think that subconsciously, because it was for me as well, something that really brought back control in your life and transcending goals which you're really trying to shoot for and reach? Because we know the fitness business side of things as well, that's a big thing that plays on the back end, and really trying to improve that so you can serve more people was like a big goal for me. And do you feel that is why you also feel the need to help more and more people now? Is it more purpose driven, or would you say it's also part of where you find the most fulfillment right now?
It's absolutely where I feel my most fulfilled. Work for me and helping people feel good. It's both like a purpose, and selfishly just makes me feel good in the moment. Like, I get so much from seeing people feel good from the effort that they've put into something, because I feel like the narrative of life is always things will get better, wait, breathe, affirm, light a candle, drink a couple of bottles of wine. And it's like, oh no, go for a walk. Squat your body weight and you tell me you don't feel amazing. You know, when people come to me, they don't come really to have a mindset shift and be able to reframe how they see themselves in the mirror or anything like that. They come because, oh, I want to lose some weight. And I'll roll with that. You know, I'll go for that. I know for a fact for them to actually do that permanently and for them to enjoy and change their whole lifestyle, it's about them putting their heart and their head in the game and understanding that it's less about the losses and more about the gains. I get to move my body. I get to feel stronger. I get to become this next thing. So yeah, absolutely. I do believe I'd always want to help people. I could do talks as well. And I think that everyone's got their purpose and you can kind of apply it to different things. But I just think you can't beat training. And I come from like a working class background, you know. We don't all have therapists. We don't have green outside of our home. We don't all have support networks. But being able to say, I'm going to take control and, you know, set up my routine and have a little bit more water or take myself off to the gym or do a little session in my home, that's so empowering. I think it's almost criminal if I didn't share that with people. I would feel bad if people didn't know that.
What made you help other people really make that shift from, you know, I have to I get to? What was it more you felt like you had the responsibility to make other people feel the same way that you did when you had your real positive feeling within yourself from fitness?
Yeah, for sure. I think that everything has to at the beginning, you know, because I didn't really know, but we just naturally fall into certain places. I was in the fitness industry and I want to help people immediately. I want to help the person next to me. I want to help them get a bit better. And you have to do it because you need to also, it's also a job. You want to earn money, you want to keep a roof over your head. And I think people try and always separate the two and act like that's terrible. I don't think it is. I think it's that's what real, you know, well-being is. It's being able to keep a roof over your head, look after yourself, eat good foods, and that all comes in. Fitness, work, all of these things. So it's all important. But then the I get to portion came when, like everything, time, you realise like, wow, like this is such a great job. And I think a lot of people think personal trainers, I certainly did. Like there's all there like this silly end of people that can't sit down for too long because that's what I was. But it's just so fun. And the joke of it is you know, to be a personal trainer, it's not really you know, it's not really easy. You'd probably do better working as in an office somewhere or doing something like that. So if you want to be a personal trainer and you want to do it certainly well into your adult life, you know, it's something you want to do. You want to help people love fitness and pick it up for themselves and change how they feel about themselves.
Very true, very true. And, you know, there is definitely a moment where I know it can feel like it's a lot with, especially what we're doing. Like we have a team we're handling and it might seem a little full on at times. So I can only imagine that, you know, anxiety, nervousness does play a big part in your life, and handling that is something that you may have had to do. And I also know it's like a big struggle for most people, really handling their anxiety and self-doubt as well. So how did you really come to overcome that sort of self-limiting beliefs as well as to pushing past that?
That's such a great question. That's one that I always ask people, because I always want to know what little gems they've got as well. So again, it's learning that. It's the same with the exercise, it's the same with everything. That number one, I think that people often hit a wall and get anxious is when there's too much. Basically, especially when you're talking in this realm where it's overwhelming, it's too much, and you love it, but I'm knackered. And certainly parents and mums, we feel it in that. I love my children so much. I love my family, but I'm knackered. Please go away. I want to hide in the cupboard. Let me drink a warm cup of coffee. Don't pour on my hair. You know what I mean? So no matter how much you love it, you can still want to run far and wide from it. So I think number one, don't react thinking these feelings are meaning you need to hot foot it out of that situation. It doesn't always mean that. It just means that you are overwhelmed for what it is. So I think number one, just try and accept where you are and notice it. I think the worst part is that most of the time we are anxious, we are feeling on edge, we don't feel great, we become reactive, and then we don't look after ourselves, and we don't actually realise, hold on, if I'd accepted this earlier and sort of kept a bit of an eye on how I'm feeling earlier and how I'm behaving, we could have pulled it back a bit earlier. So I think often trying to learn yourself enough to know actually the stage is way before massive high-end overwhelm. You don't go from okay to oh my goodness. That's not how it works. There's some benchmarking, there's some points in between that. And you're not going to do that straight away. As I say, it just goes through it. You'll start looking and you're like, oh, actually, I see now. Oh, yeah, I see. I didn't want to go to that event and I still did. Didn't want to take that call at that time. I still pushed it. It stacks up, So again, that's a learning one. So that's more something that you want to do later on. But in the moment with anxiety and feeling nervous, it's a big point to remember that what helps you when you are 20 to feel good is not what's going to help you when you are 30 or when you're 40 or when you're 70. For me, self-care was, having a bottle of red wine or 8 with my friends, hanging out till late, chatting, eating. That would absolutely ruin me if I did the same things now. And I think when people can sometimes have a difficult time is when they're still using those same things that they did try to do before, still trying to drink, still trying to eat, or stay up late. Those things actually just add into it. Because I think a lot of anxiety isn't just about the emotions of the thing that you think you're being anxious about. It's usually a lot of it is because you're not doing the basics. And as I say, I learned this the hard way. I'm really good at saying, come on, guys, same as you. What time are you going to bed? Have you had your 6 portions of fruits and veggies a day? Have you had any play? Have you been hanging out with people? Have you listened to music in the car and just singing? Have you done nothing for 2 hours? Have you watched some Netflix guilt-free? Have you know what I mean? We tell people these things, so it's hard to take our own advice. So it's really, really good to, before you run straight to, therapy, although absolutely I'm a massive fan of therapy as well. What are you doing? Are you sleeping? For me, that's probably the very first one. If I'm feeling like I want to jump off the edge of a cliff, I probably need to have a really long sleep, number one. Number two, have I eaten much? I go one of 2 ways. I can work, haven't eaten all day. What happens? We're all human. What's going to happen if you're working away and you don't eat? You're going to inhale it. So again, that's not going to be helpful because you could put yourself in a little carb coma. And let's face it, if you're going to eat a lot, you're probably not going to be eating a massive bowl of salad. It's probably going to be some things you might not want to be eating, So just focus on the basics, I'd say, number one, which is hard to do because it's boring and we think my problems are so much bigger than a glass of water at an early night. But it really is. Do that for 5 nights on the trot and tell me life isn't a hell of a lot better. So that one is a big one, the boring but true one. And then the thoughts, you do have to journal it. You have to journal it. I find actually speaking out loud helps. And I don't know, I'm not a doctor. I don't know anything research-wise. This is just what I found has helped me and helped people that I've sort of given advice to, and they've told me that it has helped, is that you kind of have to write it down. And when I say write it down, I don't mean don't be Oprah about it and try and write out a beautiful novel of the hows and whys and unpick your own behaviour. I mean, often waking up or any time, get a notebook and just free write those emotions. Get them out. Get them out. And what you'll find as well, when you say them, you probably won't really feel them. They're just these emotions. Do I want to escape my family? No, I don't want to escape my family. But do I? Oh, actually, when I see it in paper, oh yeah, maybe I could do 5 minutes to myself. Get it out. I'm knackered. I don't. Just get these words out of yourself, and that's what as well I mean when you say it out loud. And you kind of just need to hear it. And that's why when you chat with a friend, and you talk about their problems, and you speak and you tell them everything, and then they give you some advice, and you're like, well, I'm not going to take that advice because it's rubbish. But you actually still feel great because you spoke. It's the same thing. You need to say these things out loud. And can I say, I'm not mean. I would say that to my friend. They would tell me to stop being silly and take their advice. That we're very crass with each other. But yeah, so I would say, as much as you want to bounce past it, you do have to do some level of work. Same as anything. There's no such thing as a free lunch.
100%. I think that's super insightful, by the way. And the main thing that really goes back to is, asking yourself the right questions and not trying to skip 1,000 steps before before doing the thing that you have to do to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, it's good to add as well, because we're all, especially trainers and people with businesses, are really good at logically knowing. And I find that, okay, so I say this to my clients often. They say, I know I should eat vegetables. I know that I should move more. I know I should eat a little bit less if I want to lose weight. But if you're not doing it, you don't know. It means you logically know, but emotionally the connect's not there, so you don't know. And that goes with all areas. You could, that's what happens. We go, oh yeah, I know. I've talked about it, I've done it. But have you actually done it? Have you, and
100%. I think accountability, the right community support, mentors, we have mentors ourselves, and having that in every area of your life at all times is the biggest cheat code to fast tracking your life, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going through it myself again. And this is why, as I say, I can take it slightly mildly amusing. I'm not happy about it. One of our mentors sort of spoke to me about it the other day. And I said, honestly, he said, how are you? I said, I'm all right. Things are stinging a little bit at the moment. It's a bit painful because I'm paying for some mistakes I'd made. But they're all my doing. I have to sort it out. I have to make the changes that need to be done for it. And there's a lot of lessons that have been learned this last, I would say, 6 months specifically, raw top-end lessons. And there's nowhere for me to go. I can't say, I would love, people say, oh, you're wise. I tell you, I would love to relinquish responsibility. I want to point that finger. I really do. It's so much fun. But it doesn't get you anywhere, so you have to actually do the work. But I'm in it now with the guys. But yeah, I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't have them there. It's the best thing. I think you need it. Enthusiasm and motivation, no matter how much you love something, doesn't last. You need to get someone to keep you on course. And also as well, you don't know what you don't know is massive. I had no idea what I did not know. And often as well, a mentor allows you and broadens your thinking space. I wouldn't have thought it was big if I hadn't have a mentor throughout my life at each stage.
Definitely. I think someone who's been there, done it, has that much more experience is going to pull you up so much faster than you running around in circles trying to guess yourself, and then inevitably coming back to the same place where you end up burnt out, feeling frustrated. Because I think you can only really try and fail so many times before you give up on yourself, or you get so demoralized to a point where you don't want to do it anymore. You don't want to actually chase the goal that you really want to go for. So I always think that mentors have that keep you on that level of accountability where you know you should be at, but you might not be able to keep yourself there. So how do you feel that for you, like, you've been able to help other people with your actual coaching side of things? So, you know, you're, of course, well into the coaching side of space with your fitness journey, helping other people with the same struggles that you may have come across on your fitness journey. How do you keep other people accountable? How do you help them exactly?
That's my favourite part. I love the coaching, and I think that's where I told you about the play and the fun. Because of business, I'd been focusing on one area too much. Well, you know, we all have to. It's normal. It's like life. I don't believe in balance. I believe in phases. There's times in life you've got to do this. There's times in life you've got to do that. That's how it rolls. But you also do need to keep your hand into the things that bring you joy. And for me, it's been coaching. I love it when my clients say, overeating, I can't stop eating a 3 or a night. Or how do I do, you know, that mindset shift? Because that's what, obviously, as we know, that's where the results are long term. That's how you maintain it. And I'm pretty sure we can all agree the result isn't even as exciting as seeing them 2, 3, 4 years down the line, still looking, feeling, performing, full of energy and doing it themselves. Like, come on. That is literally, people that feel good, they do good. And I just want everyone to feel great. And you know what? If I'm not the smartest person out there, but I know something. I know how to keep people to be healthy and fitness. And if I can do that, brilliant. That's the way I spread it. But no, the coach, that's the fun bit. That's the nice bit. So the on the ground accountability, you always got to have it where there's a check-in point. You know, you need to have someone to actually say, okay, let's speak. Don't let people go off too much. And then also, I would find that the best way to do it is shine a light on another area in their life where they're doing really well. Because I think that most people, you'll know this. I know you will, in that you know they do incredible things in some areas of their lives, in possibly business, or they're amazing parents, or wonderful people, and then it comes to their diet or nutrition, and all logic goes out the window, and they treat themselves like an animal, and they're so horrible to themselves. And so it's actually less about saying eat more veggies, and it's about saying if your friend had done what you'd done, had a great few months and then had a couple of wild weeks, would you speak to them how you're speaking to yourself right now? You know, open the floor. How would you treat someone else? And then they'll start going, okay. And as soon as they've dropped that and realised I'm not a bad person, then you can actually get to the practicalities. But I think that you need to get rid of that veneer. It's like what we said. You know, there's a logical and emotional side, and everyone wants to do logic because it makes sense. And like what you said earlier, and I've had to learn this the hard way. I used to be like, I'm not going to cry about that because, yeah, I'll cry, but in an hour's time, I'm going to be not crying, and I would have lost that hour to just get on with it. And logically, that makes sense, you know. And so I barely shed a tear for years. But actually, you don't get to miss a step. You don't fall pregnant, have a baby for 9 months, and then have a 5-year-old. You've got to go through the 6 weeks, you have no idea what you're doing. You've got to go through these stages to learn, because that's how you continue, that's how you maintain, that's how you do everything. It's the same with the client, same with every other area of your life. There's no skipping steps. You've got to go through it. So again, I think it's just pausing people enough to say, look, yeah, it does make sense for you to not eat now for 3 days because you overate the other day. Yeah, it does make sense for you to, only walk or whatever, but you just got to pull them back and say, hey, let's think about this. And it's more about the powers in the question, Everyone knows, you can Google the program, you can Google the food. We're not here because we're given anything particularly special in that aspect. We're here because we're saying this is how you can actually apply it for your life so you can have a good life, and teach them how to do that. So yeah, that's the fun part.
That's very interesting. And of course, that's something that I feel you've helped many, many people on their journeys with, not just in their physical journeys, but that 80-90% of it is mental, and that's where real strengths and weaknesses do lie. And especially when, health is at that base of the health-wealth relationships pyramid, and that's where you really see the actual long-term outcomes. So how have you benefited, would you say, from the long-term outcomes of really working on your health and your fitness early on?
So many ways. I'm going to give you one on the ground one that is so real, because I've literally just going through it. I've just been going through it. And it's one of those moments where we all have it. You have a minor moment. And these are the only moments really that in life you're like, wow, I can't believe it. And I needed it, because I told you I was going through a bit of a wild time in certain areas. So with training, as we know, again, no missing steps. You got to do the dance. You got to lean in. You got to go for it. You got to do the little bits. And what's the most important part isn't so much that you stick to it, but it's that you imperfect action. You're showing up as much as you can, imperfectly as you can. You're learning the power of a reframe. You've got to reframe the situation until it makes sense. You got to keep going. You got to appreciate the small steps. For me, how exercise has helped me directly is that I lately have had lots of operations on my scars. That's a lie. I had operations on my scars since I was 4 weeks old, but since I'd say for about the last 7 years, I've linked back into operations, because although the operations are free on NHS, like recovery is not free. I need to work, and with scars, there's no. It's not like having a nose job or a boob job where it's like, oh, you'll be out for 3 weeks. It could be, yeah, it'd be fine for a couple of days, or you know what, the skin graft didn't take. You could have an infection. You could be screwed now for 4 or 5 months. You know what I mean? So I just didn't do anything, because it's not worth the risk. But now, I'm doing all these things, and you have these laser in. At the moment, it's big on laser, and it's basically these little what do you call it? Well, just like laser holes, needle holes in the scars to release the scar tissue. But loads of them, and it's hot. It creates little cuts all over your face, all the scars. Anyway, there's a point here that's coming. So after the operations, you have to deeply massage the tissue, which is vomiticious in itself, but we'll just go over that bit. But because of exercise, it's really hard to believe things are going to change. It's hard to believe I could lift that, or I could do a pull-up with a 15-kilo plate. It's hard to believe I can do, you can't see it, the end goal. This is why coach is so necessary. You can't believe in what's going to happen. Whereas with the scars, it's just painful. It's painful having it. It's painful after it. The massaging is painful. It's uncomfortable. And it's always 3 sets forward, 2 sets back. That's how it goes. And you just keep going. Zigzag. It's a constant massive zigzag. But because of exercise, I knew the dance. And actually, the other day, I saw a picture of myself from 8 years ago, which isn't long in the scheme of things. And I look so different. To put it in perspective, my scars were so tight before, I couldn't look left or right, because there were scars. I would have to turn my whole head to look around a room. It wasn't an issue. I didn't know it was a problem. It's only now that I'm like, wow, this is wonderful. Peripheral, I can see everything. But the point is, the groundwork, it's hard to take. And it's one of my surgeons always says, he's like, we give you so much. They sort of help me out and get me in, a lot, and they're really great, help me out a lot. But he says, because you always do the graft, you do the after work, you do the aftercare, and you do the aftercare protocols to a T. Whereas a lot of people don't do it. But I understand why they don't. It's hard. It hurts, and you can't believe it's going to change. Whereas exercise gives me that. I know, I get it. I'm paying now, but I'll get it. But you're not talking about days and weeks. You're talking about years, and that's life, isn't it?
I think it compounds as well, 100%.
Yes, that's exactly it.
It's definitely one of those things that the mental benefits and what you really build yourself up to as a person is what you actually take away, because we know the physical side of things we'll work on consistently because of what we built from the mental side of things. And that's where you do really see the benefits apply into everything with, your personal relationships, with the business side of things. That's where you see constant change with the actual persistence throughout, because there is an end result, and it comes from the small actions taken every single day. So 100%. So you've actually gone into sharing a lot of your story as well on social media, on TV as well, presenting. How has that gone for you? Do you like the spotlight, and do you like the actual being able to have an influence as well? not necessarily being an influencer, having the influence, like, do you feel that this is something that you really want to push further towards?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about the controllables, right? So I'm always going to be business first. Like, I like my own business. I love it. I don't, that's my number one. I want to have my company. I love helping other people. And I said before, like, you have a purpose. It doesn't mean it doesn't transcend into other arenas. Like, for me, I've been asked to do my story in different ways with TV stuff before that as well, before I did the first show, the initial show. And I was really on the fence because I was scared, basically. My past, I didn't know if I was digging away in my past. I didn't know if people were going to be okay with it, if I'd hurt people, like my people I was related to, possibly. So I was scared, and I didn't know. But in the end, what sort of pushed it over the fence was my mum said, you might enjoy it, number one, and two, you're probably going to help a lot of people by explaining your story, and regardless if you don't have to be given a positive outcome, but just actually simply sharing your corner of the world shows this does happen. Because obviously for me it's normal, like these going through this kinds of life is normal, but it's only so much now as an adult, like I speak to more and more people, and we're all so different, and we're also like in our own lane. I don't know much about other people's lives either. I don't know, like, you travel loads, like you're a doctor, you do, it blows my mind. Like, I can't, I'm like, wow, we're all in our own little head, our own little world. So I think that putting yourself out there, especially if you've got a bit of a different story, sometimes you do just have to sort of say, yeah, I'm going to take the jump and help. So to answer the spotlight crack, I was never really like, I want to be on TV. I wasn't really ever like that. I can't say that. I remember they said, I got a call from a production company to go for a meeting. And of course, I was in the meeting and I said, do you want to be on TV? I was like, yeah, I love TV. Yeah, I love it. Watch it all the time. Great, that TV. but no, I didn't at the time. But then it wasn't until I did the show, and it was so amazing. I was so much gratitude to BBC. They gave me something I never thought I'd have, answers about my past. I got to meet so many different people. It's the first time I probably saw working women in, like, thrown down, like every so often you meet people and you're like, whoa, you're amazing, And I got to see these women, and it was just a great experience for me. And then they asked me to go back. The show did well, so they said, can you come back, make some more documentaries? And then I realised what an opportunity it was, because they said, do you want to look into some plastic surgery in Korea? Well, they said, what do you want? What are you interested in? And I said, I'm interested in these surgeons in Korea, because they're apparently the best in the world and really advanced way of doing operations. And the rules is sort of different. Whereas here we have GPs, obviously, but GPs, heart surgeon, plastics, it's everyone kind of can do anything. So kind of they're doing it off their own back almost. Once they've got the qualifications, they do it off their own back. And obviously with that, you have geniuses. But what else are you going to get? Nightmare stories, which is what we got to look into. So yeah, it was more just like, why wouldn't I love it? It was amazing. I met amazing people. I got to do wonderful things I never thought I'd be able to do. I asked them about if I could go and look into these surgeons. I was 28 weeks pregnant. I said, yeah, got me on a plane. We went over there. Was there filming and having a little adventure for 2.5 or whatever weeks it was, and then came back, continued. It was just a great opportunity. And then it snowballed. I was too scared to look at the comments or anything, so I didn't really know the feedback I got. And I did at the start. I got quite a lot of negative things. I got a lot of lovely things as well, but obviously, as you know, like, it's hard to take the positive. So I had to ignore it all, which is a shame in some ways, but it's a really long answer for you. But the spotlight, it wasn't being my thing. It's my own detriment, probably. But I'm more about, I just know, because of all the things that have gone wrong in my life, nothing is going to be good if I don't feel good. So, like, chasing something like spotlight, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't mean anything. The only way that I do love it now is because I have the purpose I want to share. I say, yes, I will lean into it now. If people say, will you come on and do this thing? Or, yeah, I want to do it if it's going to help my message and the things that I would like to help with, or it makes sense for whatever it is that they're doing. And yeah, I absolutely will do more. Yeah, for sure. There's always doing different talks about doing different documentaries about things.
It's very interesting because I always think of it now, which took me a long time to really come to terms with. Is like, if I can help one person change their life in one way whatsoever, then that's enough. And I think that you've actually reached so many people from really taking that step up and sharing your story, because I know I can only imagine how maybe strange or uncomfortable it might have felt for you as well, because I don't know what like mainstream stuff is like, right? I have no idea, but I can only imagine that was super, super different, or maybe not what you're used to. So I think that's like one of the main reasons why I think your social media as well is going to be and it's going to continue to inspire many, many people. So where can they find you on social media as well, Annie?
Thanks, Azri. I appreciate that. You can find me on Instagram on @AnnieJPrice, and Facebook Annie Price, and LinkedIn Annie Price.
Awesome. Please do check it out. All the links will be below. And one last question to wrap it up. If you could go back 10 years in time and do one thing differently, and it wouldn't affect where you're at right now, what would that one thing be that you would have done differently 10 years ago?
Drink less, or stop drinking.
Do you mind me asking why?
Yes, no, I do. can't pretend like I'm going to not say it now. Okay, so you said before about how did you get to ask the questions to yourself, the right questions at the right time to get the answers you need. It's because the only way you can really do that is by giving yourself space and time to be bored and time to just sit with your own thoughts. Alcohol doesn't allow that. I would go, oh, what a day, alcohol straight, go glass of wine. And just because it's a lovely glass, just because it's a nice expensive bottle of wine with wonderful, cool people, you think that that's okay. But I could only imagine, and it probably makes me feel physically sick, the amount of years I've lost by giving myself over to what is a distraction, and it didn't allow me to get through things. I'm certain I was in one of my relationships because I was drinking. And I say that because I want people to feel like, well, that's a bit harsh. Yeah, it is. Lean into that. Tell me your life wouldn't be better if you did the things that you said you were going to do. You did the things that you know you could do. How can you do that? Get rid of those distractions. And I'm certain there's people that don't drink like I drank. And technically, if you saw me, you wouldn't say, and you need to hotfoot it to AA. You'd be like, oh, she's so sociable. She has so much fun. But that's the window of fun is just not there. It's not appropriate. And sure, maybe if you're having one glass of wine and it's fine. But most of us, we have to work. We have to do a certain amount of socialising. We have to do a certain amount of life admin. There's only so much space for this self-care. People want to talk about climbing a mountain or going on some retreat or, buying the candles or doing some crystals or whatever. Stop drinking. Give yourself 20 minutes a day and stare at a brick wall. I'm in praise of nothing. You don't have to call it meditation. You don't have to call it journaling. I'm talking about good old-fashioned sit down with a cup of tea and stare into space. I'm talking about stop washing away those times that are so important. If you're in a queue, be in a queue. If you're on the train, be on the train. Don't, be on your phone or a distraction or stop, chill. And I couldn't, and I would never, I didn't know how to get there. I would drink every gap I had to hide. To sort of not hide, but to come out of myself and stare and think and unpick. I didn't take it. And I don't get me wrong, I didn't go, oh, this is the time to lean in and, unpick my life. But I didn't allow myself, I didn't have the opportunity to because I was constantly doing something. I was constantly drinking. And if I'd taken alcohol away, I think that my life, it probably wouldn't have been 100% better by no means. But it would have given me space to reflect. And that's where you can change.
Very interesting insights, and thank you for sharing. I'm sure lots of people can actually take a lot of valuable, tangible information that they can apply into their own lives away from this as well. So thank you so much for sharing your story, Annie. Very much appreciate you having here. So please do check out all of Annie's socials as well. And thank you for coming on, Annie. This has been the Elite Health Podcast. Please do check out all the links below as well. And Annie, send her a message if you need any help as well on your fitness journey, or if you want to talk about anything, please do. And thank you, Annie.
Thank you. Thank you.